Good morning, Illini. Welcome back to Healthy Illini Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Matt Schrock, and we're glad you're with us today. I'm excited about today's episode. It's something that we really haven't touched on Healthy Illini yet, and we've got 4 guests today, so I want to get to it right away and give them a chance to share what they've come to speak on today. Our 4 guests today not only are connected to UIUC, but our episode today is about military service and then coming back into the community, specifically with how it relates to education. So all 4 of my guests today are people that have had military service, and so I want to give them a chance to share a little bit about that. But first off, we have Chloe Wydell. She's a senior here at UIUC. She works with the Chez Veterans Center. You're going to hear that name a lot as we talk today. She's a social media representative and connected with Military Connected Student. She's studying interdisciplinary health sciences with a focus on healthcare administration. That's a lot of words. Chloe, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm also joined by a junior here at the University of Illinois, Daniel Kopko. He's a resident at Chez, which, as we talk about Chez Veterans Center, is not just a place with resources, but it is a place that you can live. And so he's a resident there, and he's studying accounting and data science. Daniel, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Our third student is Gabby Guerra. She's a sophomore, also a resident at Chez, and she is studying psychology and criminology. Gabby, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
And our fourth is not a student, but Mason Goforth is our fourth guest, and he is an employee here at McKinley, an employee for the University of Illinois. He's a human resource specialist here with us, and Mason, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have a lot of topics kind of to hit on today, but before we do that, I do want to take a moment. I want to recognize and thank you all for your service and say thank you for what you've done. You've all been active duty military. So would you please, before we jump into anything else, would you please share just what branch you were, what years you served, and a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I am actually Illinois Army National Guard. I am currently serving. I've got 6 years under me, and I hold the rank of sergeant.
And I was active Army for 4 years, and I left as the rank of sergeant, and I was active from 2016 to 2021.
Mason?
Yeah, I was active Army as well. 2018 to 2022, I was a sergeant as well.
Gabby?
I've been in the Illinois National Guard for the past 3 years. I actually just got back from a deployment, so that gave me a little bit of taste of what active duty's like, and then I also just accepted my promotion to sergeant as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you all. And I would love to take time and talk about your experiences as active duty because they were all varied. They were different and unique, and it was really interesting for me to get into and read and get some of your background. But really, with the focus of what we want to talk about today, and because we don't have a massively long podcast, I want to kind of jump into some of that. But the focus we have today is about the transition back, really. And I've never served myself, but I have a number of friends and family members who have all been active duty at one point or another. And a lot of times in talking to them over the years, one of the things they talk about is just the transition, no matter where it is, from active duty to reserve or to civilian life, whatever it may be. They talked about, there's difficulties there. And so you all mentioned that as well in your prep information. Just the first thing for everybody was the transition. And so I wanted to really start off with that because it can be tricky. And you each talked about your uniqueness to that transition. So let's just start there. As you were coming out of active duty or coming out of deployment or whatever it may be and moving into education, into higher education, or into the job market, whatever it may be, what were some difficulties that you encountered in that time?
So for me, I was coming back from an activation in DC with the riots. So once I got back and I got home, I got settled, and then started transitioning over to Champaign. It was almost a culture shock. When you are older and you do come to a college campus, it's hard to find that sense of community with anybody, especially with the younger population on the campus. So that's how it was for me. It was definitely a big culture shock.
I mean, I went to college before I even joined the military and had my bachelor's degree. And the hardest thing after getting the job itself was, like, this will sound ridiculous, but the hardest thing was finding a new wardrobe to wear after wearing the same thing every day for 5 years almost. So that was a challenge.
For me, I think the biggest change was the change in environment and the people. I mean, in my situation, I had to go from being in an infantry unit, being in an airborne unit, having this adrenaline rush every month from jumps to an environment where everything kind of seems, in a way, monotonous compared to that. And that's a real big change to have to go through.
Yeah, Gabby, I have a specific question for you for a moment, but I think it's interesting, Mason, you talked about the wardrobe, and one thing that I've heard from a lot of my family members who have served is that just the difficulty of going from so structured to anything. You know, it's almost too many options on things because you've spent so much time just having, I don't want to say limited choices, but limited choices really in a lot of things. Things were structured for you and decisions were made for you. And those have pros and cons, obviously. But then jumping into something here that you just can do whatever. And so, Chloe, you mentioned a little bit that when you transitioned, you actually did not want to be involved with anything that had a military aspect to it. And that was kind of looking back, you kind of wish you hadn't. Would you share a little bit about that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I got here, like I said, I was coming back from my activation in DC. So I kind of had this idea that when I got here, I wanted it to be completely separate. I wanted to have a different, not a different personality, but a different life that wasn't all about the military like it had been for the last couple of months when I was in DC. And then I struggled a lot for 2 years, really just finding that sense of community, finding people that kind of had the same mindset as I did, that coming here, and it is, like I said, I am older than the younger, or the majority of the population when you are undergrad. So I didn't want anything to do for 2 years. And then my senior year, I kind of just dove all into the Chez, and just, I don't regret it. And I thank the Chez every day for everything they've given me this far.
You talk about being older than the average undergrad population, so you have different experiences. I'm going to come back to that with everybody, but I want to stop with Gabby real quick, because you've had the most recent experience, because if I remember correctly, you're just back on campus now from being deployed, correct?
Yes.
This spring 24
Yes.
is your time back.
Yes.
And you were here as a student before you left.
I was.
And so what has that been like? Because you had an experience as a student, and then you left, and now you're trying to assimilate back in as a student, but you're not the same person.
Right.
How has that been for you?
I think it's especially hard too when you talk about National Guard students more specifically, because, you know, coming off of active duty, like, they can leave that behind them, and then now they can solely focus on what's in front of them. Okay, I'm going to be a student now, this is what I'm doing. But as a National Guard student and, you know, currently serving, it's kind of like you're always flip-flopping between I'm this person and now I'm this person, and there's no, like, you can't be the same person all the time, and it kind of stinks. And coming back from, so I was a student before, and it kind of was difficult because you form these cliques and you form these groups of friends, and then you go away and you have a completely separate experience that nobody else can relate to. And it's hard to talk about because A, there's some things that you can't talk about, and B, they just don't get it. And then I, you know, obviously grew a year older, and then I come back and it was almost like I was frozen in time here. And I think that's the most difficult part, just kind of feeling, or trying to learn your place again, like coming back as a student, and then trying to leave that military etiquette behind you and move forward.
And this was a really strong point that you all put in there, or I noticed in what you put in, because you didn't specifically say it, but in reading all of your prep work, you all had the same idea, but it was stated in 4 different ways. And it was related to in 4 different ways. So even though you all have similar experiences of military background, each one of your experiences is different. So there are aspects that you could talk to each other. Like Mason, you're the oldest of the group here. you could talk about your serving when you served, and it would be very different than the others here. But there'd be some similarities in that you can understand. But there'll still be moments where they're not going to get totally what you're saying. Now take that and try to relate those experiences to somebody who has no background in military, and that's really hard. Like, you can all tell these stories, I can't relate to it at all. I can empathize, I can try and put myself in your shoes, but there's no way. It's just not going to happen. And so that I understand that's a really hard part of that transition. How do you approach that then when you're talking to somebody and you're trying to relate some of your experiences and you know they're not going to have anything? Is it something that you're just kind of push off to the side, not going to bother with, or do you try and frame it a different way? How do you try and approach that transition when you're talking to people that you know aren't going to have the same understanding of what you're talking about?
I think framing it in a different way. You have to know who you're talking to and what you're talking about. So being able to approach somebody with a topic of, just like your everyday lifestyle, on the difference of, like Abby said, turning off that face of, like, when you are National Guard and then you do come back on the Monday after drill and you had a long drill weekend, somebody that is just knows that you were just at drill, and they ask you how drill was, you don't really know what to say sometimes because it's hard to explain. So going back to that, knowing, like, if I'm talking to these guys, I know that they understand kind of like how drill was that weekend and what I did, and if there was any frustrations or any good things that happened, they know, like, the weight behind that. Whereas somebody that doesn't understand, you got to kind of structure it and frame it a different way when you're talking about your military service.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things you also all mentioned about, and I want to that's kind of where I want to stop on this part of it and then move on to the next section. But before that, you talked about the daily routines were different. How was that hard to adjust your daily routine internally as you were trying to transition from something that was very, very structured, you had a very set thing, to where you can make choices? Was that an internal struggle for you?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, I enjoy not having to wake up at 5:30 in the morning anymore. So, yeah, like, I've kind of wanted to wake up earlier now, now, like, being a year and a half out, I'm like, man, I was really, productive early in the morning. And now, like, I wake up and go straight to work and go home and do nothing. So
I would say for me, it is kind of a weird change in structure because you wake up and then you're expected to go to first formation, perform physical fitness, and then you kind of have, like, an agenda for the day. Usually, sometimes you just sit around and wait for no reason. But then once you get out, for example, coming to school, now you're waking up early and then you might get some stuff done. And then next thing you know, like, sometimes in my case, I'm just like, all right, well, now what should I do? Like, I just finished everything I needed to do for the day. I can go to the gym and I can come back, but I still have 4, 5, 6 hours left in a day. Like, what should I do?
This is great because we're not video, so no one listening can see this. But I'm watching the four of you, and it's wonderful that at the moment somebody says something, all the other three understand. They go, "Oh yeah," and then there's that look of familiarity and that look of connectedness, And you're saying stuff that I have I don't have that. I'm not feeling any of that nostalgia or that relief or anything like that. But as you're all talking, you're all individually connecting with that. So that brings me to the next part of it of the conversation, because we've talked about how difficult the transition is. And then the next point every single person made was connect with something, connect with somebody, find ways to connect. So if you would share in your personal journey, and here on this campus specifically, what are ways that you have connected to not feel that isolation, not feel that awkwardness of I'm older than the people in my class, I've had this experience they haven't had. How do you find that, or how have you found that relief from that isolation?
I would say for me, honestly, it was just walking in the doors of the Chez. I mean, it's a completely different environment when you walk in there. I'm not connected to ROTC. I have friends that are in ROTC, so I assume that's another pathway you can go. There also is the Illini Veterans RSO. So that's another social RSO. They hang out and everybody's military connected in some type of way, shape, or form, rather that be your parents have served for 20 years and you are the son or daughter of somebody that has served, or they're coming from active duty or National Guard. So finding the connection, we have these resources. It's just taking the step to do it. So mine, I honestly just walked in the doors of the Chez and found my way through.
I think for me, I guess the biggest asset was getting in touch with military connected students, just because when I came to campus, it was sort of intimidating. I kind of knew that most people wouldn't be able to relate to my experiences, and I was coming into campus at 23 at the time, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to be around 18, 19-year-olds most of the time here. But then once I did connect with military connected students, I saw, oh, we have a 36-year-old here who did 20 years in the Navy and decided to come back. And then we have National Guardsmen who went through their training and came back, and then they kind of have the idea of what the military is like. And then there's people with very similar experiences to me who just did one full contract, got out the military, and decided to pursue school. And to kind of have that support system of, oh, I'm going to be there for the 36-year-old or someone my age, and then they're going to be there for me. It's kind of, I don't know, it's like, in a way, it's just nice to have.
For sure. Gabby, what has helped you? I mean, it's very early in the semester still, but what things have you found that have helped you to try and reconnect to the campus and find this side of your academic life?
Well, I've been connected with the Chez since my freshman year, 2021. So luckily, I found a great group of people there. And then when I left, they were super good about coordinating with me, and I was actually able to reside there again coming back from the deployment. So I always felt like I had a home within the Chez. And not only that, but when I first got there and even now, just the group of people there is just absolutely amazing, residents and staff. I mean, you can connect with them on a level that you didn't think as a student that you could connect with people on. And one thing I appreciate about the people that live at the Chez is that everybody just wants to do stuff, whether it just be hanging out with each other, sitting, in the living room, or going out together. Like, it's a very family-oriented kind of aspect that, I think you get that a lot in the military, but it trickles over into Chez life, that's helped me a lot. And, I mean, additionally, I'm in the ROTC program here as well. And I think structure-wise, that has helped me because all of the cadets there, they're, looking to serve after college, and we're waking up 3 days a week for PT. So it kind of gives me a little bit of that regularity and, structure that I was missing coming home from a deployment because, I was working 12-hour shifts, and then I came home over winter break, so there was nothing for me to do for about a month until I came back to campus. So it was really hard for me because I was like, oh my gosh, I have nothing to do. And so yeah, just having ROTC, having kind of a structure, and then having the people at the Chez to kind of bounce off of, it's helped a lot.
I have a question for Mason before I get there. You've all talked about Chez, and you've talked about military connected student. If you would take a moment and kind of explain what that is, what military connected student is, and kind of how it functions on campus.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, it can be anything. It can be someone that is currently serving in the National Guard like Gabby and I are. It can be somebody that was prior service like Daniel. It can be somebody that has parents and you're the child. I mean, they have a very unique experience that is a lot different than ours, and that's an experience we can kind of understand, but not really, just like other sons and daughters of come from families that have parents that have served. So, I mean, military connected can encompass just about anything. It could even be somebody that is interested and hasn't joined or anything yet and wants more information. They can just walk into the Chez and get resources and everything.
we'll come back to, and we're going to talk about resources as well. Mason, your experience has been slightly different because, again, like you said, you were college first and then did your service. As you've gone into the workforce, how did you find connection there, or how did you find your place with people that didn't have your experiences?
Yeah, so the Army offers the career skills program. So that was really helpful when you get your orders or you're 6 months out from getting out. You can get an internship. I got an internship with John Deere, so that really bolstered my resume there. And then was looking to come back home to Illinois, so I just kind of applied everywhere and got lucky with the university. So
I mean, really, the common thread here is just reach out. There's resources and reach out. Get connected, and there's opportunity there. You're not alone. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to carry. You come from an experience that is very not individualistic. You come from the community aspect. Use that when you come out. Even if you have, like Chloe, you said, you kind of wanted to separate from that, and you said, that's not the direction I really wanted to go. So that's an opportunity to get connected. So as we're talking about Chez, as we're talking about military connected student, and if there's a listener who's on campus and they're like, this is my experience. I came out of the military, or I'm still at reserve duty, but I don't really know what to do, but this sounds really appealing. This sounds something I want to know more about. How do you connect with Chez? How do you connect with military connected student? Is there a website, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is really easy to find. It's just chesveterancenter.ahs.illinois. We are on all socials. You can follow us on any of our socials. Our Instagram has a link tree of the application if you just want to live there. Registration as a military connected student. It has direct links to any of the staff members in the special areas that they specialize in, their contact information. We are also located right across Cafe Paradiso, 908 West Nevada over in Urbana. So our doors are always open.
This conversation has been really good, but one of the things we talked about is that you're all connected together. You have similar experiences. I mentioned that when somebody says something, everybody else kind of goes, "Oh yeah, that's it." They have that similarity, but I'm sitting on the outside as somebody who does not have military experience, and be honest, this podcast was a little intimidating because I wanted to do right by this conversation, but I'm like, I don't even know what to ask. I don't know how to ask it. So if somebody's listening and they don't have military service, but they want to learn more, or they want to start conversations and they want to be supportive, but they don't know how to approach it, do you have any advice on for students who don't have that background on how to connect with students who do?
Honestly, like, everyone that I've met in the, military student community, like, we're very honest people. And whether or not you had a good or bad experience, we are proud of, like, the things that we have done. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And if you want to ask us about it, if, you have any questions or anything, I think that all of us would be more than happy to try to explain to you, try to connect with you, try to, tell you about it. We're not going to sit there and try to recruit you or anything like that. It's not what we're trying to do. But, like, if you just, truly want to know, I think that this community is, absolutely fantastic. And I think that we'd be more than willing to share our experiences or anything that you'd be wanting to know.
And I think for the most part, people love sharing their stories. Mm-hmm. And even like some of the struggles people go through in their trainings or during their time in the military, like most people look back like to those days and they just laugh about it. Like it's just enjoyable to talk about it and to express it with people and to be like, yeah, it really sucked at the time, but now like looking back, like it was kind of cool that we did it. I mean,
I do want to also add, there's always students at the Chez. So even if you don't want to ask questions to any of the staff members and you want to ask a question to the students, there are always students sitting around in the little lounge area in the living room or the fully accessible kitchen that we have, or there's a little study room right when you walk in right to the right. There's always people and always students there. So, I mean, the students they're everywhere. whether people know it or not.
And the doors are open for non-military affiliated students as well. Anybody can come in and be involved, correct?
Yep. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to I think 8 p.m. is when our doors lock. And like I said, you can also connect with us on social media. So our Instagram DMs or anything like that, we're always available.
And as always, we will have all these resources listed in our bio. So if you're hearing these things and you want to check it out, you can just click on the link there and get connected with Chez, with the social media aspect of it, and check them out. Guys, I every time it goes so fast. I've really appreciated this conversation, and I know I would love to sit and just hear those stories. I love hearing stories anyway, but I would love to hear those stories. But we are unfortunately out of time, so I just want to say thank you again, Chloe, Daniel, Gabby, and Mason. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for sharing a part of that experience and a part of who you are with us and our listeners. And I just want to say thank you for being here today.
Thank
you for having us.
Part of the college experience is sharing your experience with somebody else and learning about other people's experiences. And sometimes you find people that have a lot of similarities with you and people that have vastly different backgrounds. And sometimes talking to a student who has had active duty service or is in the reserves can be a vastly different background. And so it's a conversation that can sometimes be a little intimidating, but it's a good one to have. So if you're listening today and you have questions, if you have comments, if you want to know more, please reach out to Chez. Please reach out to the social media of our military connected students. If you know somebody who's had military service, talk to them. That's what this is all about. This is about starting conversations. This is about opening doors. And if you want, contact us here at Healthy Illini. We'd be happy to partner with you and help you with those conversations, to assist you however you can, connect you to whoever that you're looking for. But we just want to be a part of that and share the stories that we have on our campus and connect people that may think they have nothing in common, but find out that there are similarities there, and just helps them grow and helps support them along their journey. But thank you for joining us today. You are on a personal journey, no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we're here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.